Hi Year 10s, welcome back. We're going to continue on with our unit on statistics and we're going to move into bivariate data and scatterplots. So our goal today, our learning intention, is to know what bivariate data is and how to interpret it. And you'll know if you've achieved this because you'll be able to correctly plot bivariate data on a scatterplot and then describe any correlation between two variables. We're going to approach this lesson in two steps. First of all, we've got to visit some terminology, for example, correlation, scatterplot, bivariate data. We'll go through all those words and then I'll show you how to do it by doing question 1 for you. Okay, so the first bit of terminology is bivariate data. So bi means two, variate means variables. So each data point in a set of bivariate data is actually a measure for two variables. So it might be a measure of someone's height and someone's weight put together as two variables or bivariate. Okay, typically we will plot or visually represent bivariate data, especially if both of them are numerical, on a scatter plot. And this is a graph where each data point is represented just by one dot. And the position of each dot is actually decided by the coordinates, which represent the two pieces of data that go to make that point. Okay, the last definition I'll do for now is correlation. Basically, this is a mathematical word for relationship. You're looking at the relationship between the two variables. Now, it can be described three ways. It can be described in terms of strength. So, for example, this one's strong, still strong, moderate to weak. Shape, it can be linear, like a line like most of these are, or non-linear, it might look more curved. And direction. So all these are positive and all these are negative. Let's see how to do this using question 1. For question 1, you've got this simple bivariate data set. You can use technology if you want to, but I'm happy for you just to do it by hand, and I'll show you how to do that now. So first thing we need to do is we need to draw a scatter plot. We need to describe if it's a positive or negative correlation, or if it's strong or weak, and we have to identify any outliers if there are any. So outliers are, of course, point of data that is far away from all the rest. Looking at my x variables, I need to have a scale that goes from 1 to 8. So I'm going to do 1 to 8 along the bottom here. My y variables start at 1, it's the lowest, and go up to 1.8 is the highest. So I'm going to do that going up here. Okay, so here's my axes. You can see I've got x running along the horizontal and y going vertically. I've just labeled them x and y because that's the information I was given here. And I've got my scale, which is continuous. It doesn't skip numbers or anything like that. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And going up, it's 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8. Make sure you go with a continuous scale. Don't skip, for example, 1.2 because it wasn't represented in the data. You need to include it on your scale, otherwise you are not going to be able to accurately report on the correlation. Let's draw in the points. Now your first point is at 1 and it's 1.0. So all I'm going to do is make it a more standout pencil, and I'm going to put it at 1 and 1.0. So it goes right there. The next one is 2 and it's at 1.1. 3 is at 1.3. 4 is also at 1.3. 5 is at 1.4. Notice how I'm going to the point and then drawing it up to where I want and then putting the dot. So 6 was at 1.6 and 7. This is where it gets tricky because we're far away from either axis. Is at 1.8 and 8 is back nice and easy at 1. Okay, so that's our scatter plot. We don't need to join it with any dots or anything like that. All we have to do now is comment on the relationship. Okay, so part B asks you to say if it's a positive or negative relationship. Part C wants you to say if it's weak or strong. And part D wants you to identify any outliers. So let's start with the obvious outlier down here. You can see it's well away from the other data points and doesn't follow the trend. So that is definitely an outlier. C, if you ignore that outlier, I'd say that's a strong relationship. It is quite linear and follows a definite pattern. So I'd say it's a strong relationship. And finally, I've got to say if it's positive or negative, and as the x goes up, so does the y variable, so it's a positive relationship. So instead of saying B positive, C weak, outlier equals, you'd either circle it or somehow identify it, let's try and write it as a sentence. So we're going to say that there is a strong positive correlation, and this can spell, between, and we haven't been told much except for it's just x and y, so we're just going to say between x and y, but for one outlier, and we'll identify it as 8, 1.8, which is the coordinates for that point. And that is B, C, and D done in one simple sentence, which I think I'd prefer you to do so you get a little practice at writing reports, which becomes quite important in Year 12 for the maths. All right, the other questions that you've been assigned for this exercise follow that same basic pattern. So take your time, work through it, make sure you're getting those scatter plots accurately in terms of the axes and where you plot your data. Get graph paper if you have it. You might be able to download a printable version and print it off at home if you have a printer. And try to write a sentence instead of single word answers if possible. It's just good practice for VCE. Other than that, good luck, guys.